to the office and I showed him. I said, look, this is what I've made. I reckon I've made today. I said, you've got one more chance. Do you want in on this or not? And he went, you're right. They're wrong. I'm in. Right. And that was it. We went from there. And I set the goal of being a millionaire because my uncle had also told me years before that I was going to be a millionaire. And of course, I wasn't a millionaire. And so, at Christmas time in the year, I set my goal of being a millionaire within 2 years. And I achieved millionaire in just over 6 months and multi-millionaire 2 weeks later. It was, we made a fortune.
And being a millionaire means being not necessarily having $1 million in the bank, having $1 million in equity, the difference between what you owe and what you own.
Correct. Yeah, we weren't talking about the capital value, the total asset value. It was purely on the equity gain.
Okay, great. And you had quite a unique system, which we won't go into here because there's another interview where people can find out much more about that.
Yeah, effectively, we learned. I came up with this system, and I didn't realize other people had invented it as well because obviously I'd never read any books or talked to anybody about it. Yeah. But how we buy the house, and by the time we were completing on it, we'd have 1 to 6 weeks maximum. We'd refinance it, get all of our money out, get a load of cash as well. And so we had no money in the property. And so we were then every 6 weeks, we were using the money again to buy another one. And so it became ridiculous. And the first year, I think I bought 74 properties worth over 12 million with none of my own money. And it was... it was a machine by then, wasn't it? It was a machine. And then the following year we got super rich, so it was learn how to do it. Got to the end of the year and I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm just making it off of a property market rise. Let's see if I can learn how to make it without a property market rise. And sure enough, I found out how to do it that way, and that supercharged it, and we just made an absolute fortune the following year.
And then someone else turned up with a sign on their back.
Yes, he did. Well, he was there before, actually. He walked. I was working on a machine, and my my HR manager, was recruiting for production assistant to my production manager, and he walked past us in the factory when I was chatting to the production manager. And I just got this feeling again, exactly the same feeling as I had with my original business partner. And sure enough, called the HR manager in and said, well, are you going to employ that bloke or what? And he said, well, I'm probably going to give it to the other guy who's a bit more qualified. I said, no, give it to him. Give him the job. And he said, why is that? I said, I've just got a feeling about him. And that was it. Took him on. He then helped us. He was a lot more than a production assistant. He came up with the idea for one of the businesses that made an absolute fortune again. And then I was, my role in that business that he created, it was his idea, was I had to provide the marketing and the put the bums on the seats, which is where you came in.
Because what I'd been doing while you were buying lots of different properties was I was buying a hotel, no money down, refurbishing it and filling it with people who'd stayed there before over the previous sort of 10 years, because I found an old guest book and turned it into a mailing list. And then I also had a mailing list from my business, which was called the Money Gym, which was a lot of people who were looking to get involved in property business and the stock market. They were trying to, it was a wealth creation education company. And then I got a call from my sister saying that she'd met a guy called Pete at a networking event. And I said, I mean, it was such an unusual thing for her to do, to go to a networking event. It was called BNI, which is Business Networking International. And he was sitting next to her, and she happened to be looking for windows for her new investment property. She found out he was in the window business, so they got talking, and then he invited her up to meet you guys, and she turned up with a small baby and a dog, I think, and talked. I remember it well. And do you really? And then she phoned me and said, "You've got to come home," because I was living in Spain at the time. And when you next come home, you've got to come and meet these guys, because they are doing exactly what you teach people to do, but they're doing it big scale. And he said they've never read a book about how to do this stuff. So that was really a real series of mega coincidences, wasn't it, that has led to
absolutely
an amazing friendship, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember I was a bit scared of you at the beginning. I was quite actually, because you used to sit off in your office, and I could tell how clever you were. I don't like to say that in public very often.
I know, it's awful, isn't
it? But so, you know, you were always very friendly, but I really had more to do with the underlings. And actually, no, your business partners. And we got involved in a series of great adventures, didn't we? We put on a wealth creation conference. We introduced you to my clients at my hotel.
Well, you talked me into doing digital business. And
I had a digital marketing training day at the hotel, and I said, "Come on, you'll love it." And you're like me, you're curious. You want to know about stuff, don't you?
I wasn't going to go, and you said to me, I said, "Well, how much money can you make doing this?" And you went, "Oh, probably about 150,000 a year." And I thought, well, you know, I'm pulling that. You know, some weeks I'm pulling that sort of money out.
But you were gracious enough not to tell me that.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought, all right, I'll go along. And I'd never been to anything like this at all before. And I went along, and you taught me how to put a website online, and I put this poker site online because it was something I was playing poker at the time, just started playing poker. Put this online. I didn't make any money that day, but the following day I'd invested $10 and I'd made $10. And it was just changed my world, because I looked at it and went, so I can sit behind a computer and I can tap a few keys, put some money on the table, and make more money than I put on the table. I found a new purpose in life. To me, it was like, well, you mean I don't have to employ anybody? I don't have to build factories? I don't have to have huge capital investments?
The appeal, wasn't it? And for anyone watching who remembers back in the day of mid-2000s, it was the underachievers method I was teaching with Frank Kern and Ed Dale, who were partners at the time. And they taught people how to drive traffic to a capture page, build a mailing list by asking one question about something, and then you basically created an ebook with all the answers and sold it back to them. It was absolutely genius. I tried several things, like I was the guinea pig whisperer for a while and things like that, but I just couldn't get interested in it. My problem is, if I'm not interested, I can't do it. But you picked something was your hobby anyway.
No, it wasn't. It was. Oh no. Well, that first bit was, but then it was a case of
what happened after that?
Well, after that, I looked at it and I thought, this is great, but there's no way I'm going to sit and learn all this stuff and learning how to do FTP and all that, a load of rubbish. All I wanted to do was push a button and make money. So I thought, right, I need somebody to do this for me. So I went and I got a friend who was running one of my businesses. We just sold that business, so he wasn't particularly happy where he was, and so I went and poached him and said, "Come and learn, digital marketing." He said, "I know nothing about it." I said, because he built one of my companies from zero, and we sold it within, I think it was about 2 years. And so I said, "You don't need to know that." I said, need to know how to. I already trust your ability to turn things. So I'll get you the education." And he came over, and we had a half a day with you showing him the basics of what you'd shown me. And that was it. And we just needed an idea. So on the way home, I came up with an idea. I said, "Go and do that. Yeah, see what happens with that." And it was a ridiculous idea. And it just flew, didn't it? It just really took off. I couldn't. It was in those days when everything I touched turned to gold.
This is a good opportunity to talk about that, because the other thing I wanted to bring people's attention, particularly, was that you have always had a unique ability to direct your thoughts and plan your life with utter fearlessness. As far as I can tell, and in fact, that's how you met your wife, because you planned out. It was the law of attraction in action, basically, wasn't it? Well, but nobody ever talked about it like that in those days.
The problem is, I'd split up with a girlfriend, and I didn't realize I thought differently to other people. And I remember one of the first job as an apprentice, I was always getting into trouble, and they said, "Well, why do you think so much?" And it was like, that was a crazy thing for people to say to me.
Really? Anyway, it's like we can turn it off, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, I'd split up with this girlfriend, and I thought, so we're just, I thought, this is ridiculous. We're just supposed to bump into the person we're supposed to meet, are we? That's supposed to just randomly happen. And I thought, well, I don't even really know what I want. And so it was a Sunday, and I just sat there and I came up with everything I wanted in a person. You know, she had to look like this. She had to be this sort of height. She had to come from a home with both parents weren't divorced. She had to have an elder brother or sister. She had to live within 15 miles. She had to be within 100 yards of wherever I traveled. And I came up with everything. She had to find my jokes funny. She had to like what sort of, which she does occasionally. She had to fancy me. And I came up with every possible thing I could think of. This was a Sunday, and I thought, oh, yeah, that's pretty exhausted. Yep, that's it. I didn't give it much more of a thought. I put it down. I saw her the next day. Right, first time I'd ever seen her was the next day. I didn't actually talk to her for about 6 weeks. Then a few years later, I'd forgotten about all this. And a few years later, I found the piece of paper. It was like, oh my God, I manifested her, you know, and much to her annoyance, especially when I wrote it in my book on manifesting, and you know, and that was one of the times I learned that you could really direct your mind to get whatever you want. You know, and I can give you countless examples of having used it to do some amazing things.
Yeah, business is going great ish, but you now are starting to make some serious money with property. So you decided to sell the business? That was another example of manifesting, wasn't it?
My role in the business had ended because I was getting very bored with doing the same thing over and over. And so I'd recruited people to do the jobs I was doing, sort of thing. And my role ended up being marketing. And so we went to one of the seminars we went to. I can't remember what it was. Early part of 2006. I was at a seminar with you.
Internet marketing seminar. And I was invited there by Alan Forrest Smith, and I'm interviewing him straight after this today.
It was a guy there. There was 2 pieces of information I learned at this thing, which were priceless. One of them was this guy talked to me about mind maps, and I'd learned about it years ago. I'd never done anything with it. And he says, you've got to throw all your thoughts into a mind map. He says, you'll learn so much more. And the other thing, there was this guy, Fred Gleek, was there, and he said, you might be an expert until you've written a book, you're not. And I thought, oh, right, okay. So anyway, I went away from the seminar, and I bought the mind mapping software, you know, and I sat there. My wife was take the children to bed, and she'd normally be gone for a couple of hours reading them stories and things like that. I thought, what am I going to do? Oh, right, I've got this mind map, and I loaded it on. You know, I'm pretty technically moronic when it comes to tech stuff. I thought, what should I do with it? And I thought, I've been meaning to write a book. Yeah, okay. Shall we start fleshing this out? Anyway, 3.5 hours later, I'd come up with a book, all the chapter titles, most of the bullet points, and basically I set myself a goal of writing the book quite quickly because I didn't have a lot of time. Ended up writing a 450-page book in just under 20 hours.
Not so much a book as a brick.
Yeah, and it was, and it took a lot more than the 20 hours to edit it and that sort of thing. But I'd basically got it all, and it was in place, done in 20 hours. I knew it was quite good because my wife was laughing at some of the things I'd written in the book. So I thought, this is probably quite good. And you'd encouraged me to write.
I knew you'd be able to write a book and that's how I planned the Money Gym book as well, was by mind mapping it like that. Because mind mapping changed my life completely. It's for visual people, isn't it? And creative people. It's a way of organizing the chaos.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we did that. And I thought, right, I haven't really got time to do the marketing of it. What I really need is a world-class marketing expert. So I sat there and I considered, how I would get a world-class marketing expert to come and work with me. 2 weeks later, a world-class marketing expert asked to work with me. Then I met him, and what came along with him was more than one world-class marketing expert. I had team of them. We met up, and we were, we all met up. They flew in from America and Spain, and we met up at the Gatwick Hilton, and we sat there and what are we going to do? Right, we got really grandiose ideas we had and that sort of thing, and they said, right, we need a quick project to make us a little bit of money to start with. And I'd taken them a copy of my book each because they were literally hot off the presses, and I said, well, you can help me promote that if you want. And they said, yeah, let's do that. And of course, it was an instant success because those 2 geniuses knew how to market like no tomorrow.
And they really knew how to use AdWords as well, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. They were incredibly clever. And it was working with them was one of the greatest educations that I've ever had in any particular subject.
They were really under the radar, though, weren't they? I mean, they were top class people who used to work for the names.
Yeah. They were both experts, both became good friends. One of them's no longer with us, unfortunately. Yeah, sure enough, we did it. We launched it. It became an instant bestseller. I ended up being the best-selling author on that subject in the UK within, I don't know, a month or two. Yeah, we built the company that transformed the business. Now my role went from 20 days a month to 10 minutes a month, doing my work. And we took the business to the next level. That spawned off multiple different ideas, other businesses, and that sort of thing. And it just went crazy very, very quickly. That was 2000, late 2006, early 2007, and yet another success. It was yeah, brilliant.
It was
And
great days, wasn't it? I mean, the
yeah.
mid-late 2000s were just incredible. And then we're going to talk a lot about post 2020 in a minute, but there's also post 2008, 2009, isn't there?
Yeah,
Did you have any inkling what was coming?
well, no, I did, but the problem was I was on a train and couldn't get off the train. So I saw it coming and was saying to everybody, look, I think this is going to crash. My closest business associates, I think this is going to crash. I'm not sure how we're going to get out of this. And but there was no way off for us at that stage. We were in negotiations with the Bank of Scotland to sell the business to them, and we had countless investors and countless different customers and that sort of thing. And sure enough, I actually wrote in the first book. I said, people used to say the most common question was, is there any way this can fail? I went, the only way this can fail is if all the banks stop lending money at the same time.